We are recording now. Thank you, Matt.
So we're recording, Matt? You gave a thumbs up. Okay, so the first thing we had on the agenda was additions or deletions to the agenda. So we got the, we have a stipend agreement that we were asked to look at. There's also a brochure that Tammy and Matt worked on that we'll add. And is there anything else? Yeah, Mark?
The Zoom subscription.
Okay, so all that we'll put in, under old business because that's been discussed before.
Rich, you also have, I think Matt, because I was having difficulty with my email, sent you a contract for the art teacher. So along with the stipends.
Okay, so that is a new hire, correct?
That is correct.
So that'll go under executive session?
Yeah.
I don't think I received a copy of that. Can we make sure it gets sent out again before we get there?
Yeah, who sent that out?
Matt, could you do that? Thank you.
You guys want me to send that out to the whole board or just to you, Mark, for sharing?
I received it.
So we have under old business, we have the brochure, we have the stipends, because that's already been discussed. Executive session, we have new hire for art. And we have under old business, what did you call it, Mark?
What's
You're
that,
muted.
Rich?
Sorry, I was muted. A Zoom subscription.
Zoom subscription. Okay. Dwight, Kate, or Rick, anything up from you guys?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay. I always shoot myself in the foot here. Is there any members of the public? I can only see a couple, 3 people. Jennifer was raising her hand. Do you have anything from members of the public? You're next. Just seeing what we're doing. Cool. Thank you.
Rich,
Yeah.
I just want to make one announcement. Anybody can use their little blue raise hand feature. Am I host again, Matt? Okay. I should be able to see that if you need to, if you have something you want to say.
Cool. In the days of COVID, you have to use a feature to raise your hand. Remember that, teachers in school tell them you don't want them raising their hands. You want them to use their feature. There's nothing from members of the public. Review and approve the minutes of the June 15th meeting, so I need somebody to make a motion.
So moved. This is Rick.
Okay, so Rick moved. Do I have a second?
I'll second. This is Mark.
Okay, Rick moved. Mark seconded. Is there any discussion? Hey, Laura. If not, roll call vote. Rick?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Laura?
She's still connecting.
Yeah. And Dwight?
Aye.
That looks like a unanimous vote. So I had no correspondence. Bill Antone or Matt or Tammy, was there any correspondence I missed? Now I see Matt and Bill and Tammy shaking their heads. Matt, are you good? Yep, Matt's shaking his head. Cool. Old business, tech RFP, discussion possible action. I'm going to mute myself and I'm going to let Matt and Tammy and Mark and Bill lead us down the chosen path here.
One might call it a rabbit hole. So we received, I'm unmuted, right? Yeah. So we received 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 responses to the RFP. 6 of which were actual proposals. One of which was just an advertising pamphlet. That one is school blocks, so I won't be discussing that one at all. I met with Matt and Anita on Friday, I believe, Friday afternoon, and we went through all of the proposals and talked about the pros and cons, essentially narrowed it down to 3. The e-business technology one, which is a company that does some business locally with the North Branch Fire District. They designed what is currently the Dover website, although they did that almost 10 years ago. Then RAKZID, RAKZID, and BlissTech. And they're all very different proposals. I think I'm going to cut to the chase here, which is that money is the I think the ultimate deciding factor. The e-business technology is roughly $26,000. The RAKZID is approximately $34,000, and BlissTech, if we do it on WordPress, which would be my chosen platform, would be about $12,000. And he's somebody who currently works with both of the schools on an hourly basis, and I believe his proposal was for the same hourly rate, if I remember correctly, Matt. Yeah. So basically, what he's going to do is what we talked about: create a single website with 3 distinct sections to it, one for each school and then one for the board. It's going to integrate with the Google for Education domains that we currently have, wardsboroschool.org, doverschool.net, and wyndhamcentralboard.org. I think we will add RVUSD.net to that because that will be the primary address for the site. It will not include any sophisticated features like e-commerce. One of the things we had requested was that we get a proposal for putting the lunch program online, as far as paying for, your parents being able to pay for it. So it does not include that. It does not include a specific web app. I'm sorry, mobile app, but the WordPress platform is mobile friendly. Matt spoke relatively highly of him. I'm not going to say very, but spoke highly of him, and the fact that he works well with both Matt and Tammy. And while this BlissTech is not my primary choice, from a financial perspective, I think it's the only choice. There was one less expensive proposal from a independent contractor named Abraham Ellie. We felt that his proposal was very insufficient. It was pretty generic and didn't really get into the nitty-gritty of the details in our RFP. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm happy to go into more detail if you want. I don't think we need to spend a whole lot of time on that decision matrix that I created, because like I said, from a dollar perspective, I don't think there really is a choice. And both Matt and Anita felt that BlissTech was their first choice. So Matt, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I think you did a nice job summing it up. Thank you for mentioning that we have worked with Derek for a couple of years now, and I've been very satisfied with his work, and good guy to work with, very responsive to our other tech needs, and I would be more than happy to work with him on this project.
So I think given that that history and his willingness to work with us on the individual details, I think we're going to get something really good out of this at the end point, and we'll be able to build on it if we want to add down the road. It's not, Bill, going to really give us a template though for the entire SU that I was hoping we would get. Any questions? Peter, I'll send you the entire list.
So, Mark, does the Bliss Tech, does that like hit all the major requirements that you were hoping to do with the RFP? Was there that was
It does.
left out?
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't hit any of the optional requirements, but I all along I never really expected we were going to be able to get into the optional requirements, and this is going to be a very individualized website. It's not going to be something that a big company kind of takes bits and pieces that they use elsewhere. So I think that's positive. And I think we're going to end up with something that is relatively easy for current staff to maintain, rather than something that has to be, maintained by an outside company down the road, which was also a big part of the RFP that was of importance.
Dwight?
Hey, first of all, thanks, Mark, for doing all this work on this. It's really appreciated. So you mentioned it would be easy for the staff to maintain. I'm guessing because that's in WordPress. Could you go through what the expenses would be on a yearly basis as opposed to the upfront cost?
Basically hosting, which would range somewhere between $20 and $30 a month, depending on what host we ended up going with. But that really would be it.
But that because the teachers would be doing most of the updating and changing and that kind of stuff.
They basically there'll be an administrative. Sorry, my dog's chasing the cat. Be an administrative console where we'll be able to give individual teachers or staff very specific permissions. So they're only going to be able to make changes to their section,
Right.
and it will be through. Most of it will be through plugins and through the administrative console, which will be built specifically for the purpose of maintaining the entire environment.
Okay. So sounds like it's just really one-time upfront cost, and then it seems like it's very reasonable.
With Bliss Tech, that's what he proposed. He will be around. He does the IT for both buildings at this point. So he will be around if there's questions or improvements or work that needs to be done. But for the most part, WordPress can be maintained pretty simply with just a little bit of updating every once in a while, which can be done by pretty much anybody.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other comments from anybody?
I know that Laura had some questions, but looks like she's trying to reconnect now.
Okay, so go ahead, Peter, while we're waiting for Laura to reconnect.
Yes, I currently run a couple of WordPress sites, and it's quite easy and cheap. Their tech support is very good too.
It looks like Laura needs tech support because now I see that she's totally gone.
I think she needs internet access.
It could be
Maybe.
important. Is there anybody else with any other comments? Mark, go ahead and just give us those numbers again.
Yeah. So e-business technology was, I'm rounding, but was roughly 26,000. RackZid was approximately 34,000. And BlissTech for the WordPress site is 12,000. With BlissTech, he is an hourly rate. It's not a set price like these other projects would be. So I believe he had 300 hours specified for that 12,000.
So it could be more or less.
Could be more or less.
And what's the hourly rate he's giving us?
33.
Thank you, Kate.
So, no worries. So I noticed that was one of the big differences with the RFPs is he was quoting an hourly rate. Like, do we have some parameters that we're going to put in place, that we're expecting, or deliverables, for each phase of the project or anything like that to ensure that it stays on track and on time, or just you guys have experience with him so that it will stay?
No, if the board decides to move forward with this, we'll do an outline of the site. We'll have them do a mock-up. So we'll have phases to the project, which he didn't really build into his proposal, but are standard in web development. So for all intentions of going through those phases, not necessarily breaking down the deliverables by hour, but by phase. And that would give us an opportunity to get input from the entire board and from the public on an ongoing basis.
Would he be willing to do those on instead of an hourly basis, would he be willing to do it, up to so many hours he would do each phase of the project so that it was more of a set price versus we could get into a quagmire of something with hours? That would be my only concern with a contract like that.
I see Matt shaking his head. Yes. So I'm guessing based on his experience with Derek, this is something that if we want to move forward with, I think Matt, Tammy, myself would sit down with Derek, maybe with Anita as well, and negotiate exactly what it is that we're going to expect and pay. So we'd be in the driver's seat. We could say we want to pay X amount for phase 1, phase 2, and see what he says.
So let me just, if I could, Kate, are you all set?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, because so the only question where I was going, because you said it was $33 an hour and he was suggesting $12,000. The other company was 26 and one was 34. Did they give an hourly rate also, or did they give approximately how many hours they thought it was going to be?
No, actually, website RFP responses are rarely done on an hourly basis. They're done on a project basis. So this is unique in that sense, and I think it's because of his existing relationship with the district and the way that he gets paid. And my understanding, and Matt, correct me if I'm wrong on this, that Matt feels that we can also work this project into his existing processes, so that while it's not going to cover the expense, the method that we pay him and et cetera would just be smooth sailing. But no, to answer your question, there's no hourly information.
Okay, I don't know if Laura's frozen or if she just put a picture of herself up, but
I just reconnected.
Okay, so here's what if we're looking at maybe considering, if everybody on the board is thinking of maybe considering this BlissTech because of their relationship and their pricing, then maybe Mark, you, Matt, Tammy, and Anita with Bill can kind of put down the different phases and maybe have him give us an idea how many hours he thinks each phase is going to take. And then Matt and, the people that have more technological savvy than me, can, just look at that. This makes sense, or maybe this is nowhere near enough. And then maybe we'll come back to the next meeting in August and say yay or nay if that works for people. Is that okay, or does the board want to? I don't feel comfortable saying 12,000, but it's hourly because, what if he gets us halfway there and then we're stuck with nothing? And I'd like to see what he thinks in phases, but that's just me. Dwight, or go ahead, Kate.
So maybe we could come up with some type of thing where we give them permission to go forward with a contract up to X amount of dollars for a deliverable website. So that way they can get started so we don't lose more time. So that way we kind of do a compromise with all of those elements. Does that make
Would you be
sense?
comfortable with that, Kate? Yeah. And you're comfortable with that? Kate, you're comfortable?
I'm comfortable with that. Yeah, I think that makes sense to, because that protects us to get a full baked website like you're saying, but it also doesn't cause us to lose another month or anything, so that we can get this moving forward.
I think that could work. I don't see any reason that he couldn't start working on kind of the backbone aspect of it, which really is a permission structure, and some integration with the database work. So I don't see any reason that he couldn't start that, which has to be done regardless of the user interface that he creates.
Okay. Dwight, comments?
No, I was going to say the same thing as Kate. I think it's a great idea. If we can kind of set some parameters and if we can approve a certain amount to get the project started, it seems like the only thing holding us up is really just to have a better sense of what the total cost is going to be. But if we come up with that or set some limits, I think it'll work.
Hey, Rick?
Okay, unmuted. First of all, I guess, are we okay spending $12,500 on a website? I guess that would be the first thing I would put around there. And if we are, I think if we have some parameters, as Kate just outlined, I'm fine with that.
Laura?
I'm okay with spending $12,500 on a website. I'm a little concerned about the staging, and I apologize but it's my internet connection, about the staging. So am I hearing that there's some questions? Let me see if I've got this. Some questions about the interface that we might like to go back and talk to them a little bit more about that, but we'd also like to get going so that we can get something launched. And so we're talking about kind of getting the back end going and coming back and talking about interface at the next meeting. Something like that. Is that what
A little bit different.
Okay, sorry, Kate.
No worries. And Mark, correct me if I misunderstood this as well. But pretty much just, so he quoted the RFP as an hourly rate, and we were that, to make sure that we got a fully baked website and didn't end up in an hourly quagmire, that we just set some parameters around the different phases of the project so that, for each deliverable, is worth X amount or something of that nature, so that, both parties are protected and both parties can move forward in a good fashion.
So that sounds great to me, but how would we sign? So how would we sign? So we would sign for an amount, and then what would it be that the deliverable was for the amount?
It would be the planning phase, basically, and maybe some back end work. And full disclosure isn't quite the right way to put this, but most of the proposals did not give us mock-ups or sample UIs, including BlissTech. The ones that did were the top of the line, and there was one that was $64,000, 100 and some odd page proposal. Didn't even talk about that because, so we're going to be able to build the UI as we want with him. And tell them exactly what we want.
So has he, and I apologize, I would have to go back in here and look, in terms of the process for doing that, has he limited the number of hours that he would work with us on that?
No, it's one block of 300 hours.
Great, okay,
Um,
I'm good.
So let me know, before we go any further, Rick had a question that I think, everybody said their piece. So my question, or I think Rick's question was, are we willing to spend around $12,000 on this? So this was not something we budgeted for. So I see Bill's gone away. Is Bill still there? No.
Bill's here.
Okay. So where, Matt and Tammy and Bill, where is this in the budget?
Not.
There's nothing.
It is an unbudgeted expense.
Okay. So that means we're, Matt and Tammy, you got someplace we can save 12 grand?
Before
Might be
they
tricky this
answer,
year.
I'm going to tell them it's going to be really hard to do during COVID.
Okay,
What he
Mark.
said.
Mark,
Yeah. So three comments. One, I think you need to expect that we're going to, in addition to the website, we're going to have to probably outsource some marketing. The website's going to be great. It's going to have SEO, so it's going to get out there in search engines. But if part of what we want to do with this website, and I believe it is bring more people to town because of our 2 specialized schools, we're going to have to do some marketing as well. So that's something to consider. The other thing to consider is that since this is unbudgeted, and we're talking about a substantial amount of money, we may have to request. Never mind. I'll say that for later.
so with that being said, and you can do a thumbs up if you want, are you good with taking $12,000 out of the budget that's got to come from somewhere, and starting on this project now? So why don't we start with, I think Dwight, you're moving, so thumbs up, thumbs down, are you?
I'm not, I certainly want to move forward, but if there's no money for it, then we have to, I think that's putting the cart before the horse. So I think we have to figure out how to pay for it, especially in these times. So that's unfortunate because it seems like a very good fit for us. I guess I have one other question, regarding the cost. Does he have other websites? Is that estimate, that 300-hour estimate, is that based on previous sites that he's put together? I mean, how confident are you that he's put these together and he's aware of the exact amount of time it would take to build?
Web development is his background.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Great. I guess the other thing is, since he's hourly, can it be split over 2 budgets? Or I'm not sure when. It's not going to come in one bill. How would that be? How far can we stretch out the payments to? Anyone have an answer to that one? I'm not sure, but.
Well, let's just get the questions out there and then we'll decide how we move forward.
Okay.
So Dwight, Rick?
I'm just a little leery about spending money right now since we don't know exactly what the future is going to hold, or what kind of bills we're going to wind up with next year based on what we're going through right now. So I'm a little leery of it, but if the group wants to move forward with it, I'm perfectly happy to throw a vote in positive.
Kate?
I think that's definitely a really tricky one because, it's a valid marketing need. But at the same time, if the budget isn't there, it isn't there. So I guess that's kind of one of that is a huge factor to make sure that we have the budget. But I think the need is there too. But is it the most important thing in the budget? Probably not.
Laura?
So I think I heard Bill say he would advise not doing this until after we understand what the
No.
consequences are? No?
No, he just said the money's not in the budget, and where would it come out of? He said in light of COVID-19, he doesn't know. That's much more yep, there you go. That's more of a correct response.
Hmm. Well, so what do, so I would like to ask Matt and Tammy, and if they were to say to me, we feel like there's a lot of, risk right now because of COVID, we'd like to put this on hold until we have a better sense, I would be fine with that. If they come back and say, we feel like we've got a good sense of the budget and where we might be able to move things around and cover this up, or not cover it up, but cover it, then I would be good with that. Because they're managing the budget, right? So
Okay.
that's something like put you on the hot seat, guys. But
Well, we're not going to put him on the hot seat right yet. We're just getting some thoughts on the board. Mark, go ahead.
Two things. One, we have a hand up. April would like to speak. Before we do that, I'd like to say I said this to Matt the other day, and I believe it wholeheartedly, that we should not be taking money away from the educational needs of our students to do this. So we'd have to find another way to pay for it. And I would ask Matt to discuss if he sees any room in the existing budget for Bliss Tech that we might be able to use some of those funds to get started. But I
Okay,
would
so
not.
Mark, I'm going to ask you to hold that for a second. So what I want to do is just get the thoughts of all the board members first to see where to go. But I think to put Matt and Tammy or even Bill on the hot seat to say, what do you think about the budget without letting them have a chance to look for it and see it, I think is too much. So if you'd like to answer that, we'll let them answer that. But I think that's a little bit unfair to put them on the hot seat. The other thing, I have not seen anything yet. How did we end the year? Has the audit's been looked at? Do we have a rough idea where we may have ended the year with a $50,000 surplus? That would make me feel better. We may have ended the year with a $100,000 deficit. That would make me not feel as good. Do we have any idea where we ended the year? I haven't seen the financials. We get together and discuss sending the paperwork to the state about our tax rates. I haven't seen that. I have no clue where our tax rate fell this year. So there's some other financial questions I think that we maybe want to look at too in addition. So Matt, Tammy, thumbs up or thumbs down? Are you willing to talk about the budget? You think you can find it, or do you need some time to look at the budget with Lori?
I would like some time, but my instinct is telling me that our budget was really tight as it was. So I would be hard pressed to say that $12,000 would be easy to come up with.
Matt?
Yeah, I would agree. I haven't seen the end of year yet either, but my feeling is that we were not in good shape at the end of the year based on additional students and unplanned expenses. And I always like to plan for things, so my vote would always be to put it in the budget process in the fall and make that part of our priority if that's where we're headed, rather than trying to push something that we might not quite be ready for.
And I don't want it to look like this process was for naught, because it gives us a number to use for budgeting, and it also gives us the ability to have you guys look at it. You may say, hey, only $6,000 will be spent in the next 6 months, so we definitely know where that can come from. So that might make it easier. Mark, go ahead.
No, Laura has her hand up.
Oh, and you said somebody else had their hand up too.
Yeah, April.
Okay, so was April first or Laura first?
April was first.
Cool. April? April's got to unmute herself.
I just needed a little clarification about what this website is for. Is it for marketing our schools, or is it for helping the teacher? Like, what is this website? I didn't understand what you guys were, like, what are we just a quick recap of what this website is.
So the answer to your question is yes. It's for marketing. It's for access to Google Classroom. It's for organization of board documents. It's for communication with the community, with teachers. With parents. It's kind of an all-in-one. The hope is that it's going to be an all-in-one thing, and marketing is definitely part of it.
So is this something that would be helping the teachers and the students overall have a more successful start to the year?
I'm going to let Matt and Tammy answer that.
It's not something that would be ready until at the earliest. I think we're talking October, November at this point. So in future years, I think, one of the points is to normalize the two school websites and the district's website, so that it was a substantially similar experience, that you could find the same kinds of things about each school if you were looking. Just really kind of sharpen our image a little bit and make things more efficient and more professional looking for our schools.
Okay, thank you.
April, you're all set? Thumbs up. Thank you, Laura.
Yeah, can we just have someone reach out? I'm wondering about having the website paid through non-taxpayer dollars, and if there would be any legal problem with that.
So how would we pay?
Why don't I get off while you guys have that conversation, and then I won't know.
No, I mean, I think, is Laura asking, like, we have funds in the Dover Ed Fund, not the Dover Ed Fund, but, we had money from when the town, for Act 250 permits, there was some funds there, and there were some different funds that both schools brought forward that weren't, part of the budget, but were things to help enrich the school. So why wouldn't that be able to be done? Just like when people donate I could donate money to the Wardsboro School for the STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. Is that what you're talking about?
I don't think there's a problem with using existing funds that have been given for the purpose of enhancement of the school experience. I think you're using a good example of that. Also the forest money that has been given. Also the savings on the node, the technology node that went in 6-7 years ago. I think those are some small pots of money that would make sense, that they would fit with the mission of what you guys have discussed.
Laura, did I put words in your mouth, or is that what you were thinking of?
No, I mean, that's sort of what I was thinking of. I wasn't imagining that we would figure that out during this meeting, just that, is that a place that we would go maybe to look and see if we could, our administrators could look and see that, or if it was possible to, have it done some other way.
Mark?
So to move this along, I'd like to suggest that that myself, Matt, Tammy, Anita, and Bill, if he wants, sit down with Derek and come up with a more detailed process, meaning the phases, the cost of those phases, and bring that back at the August meeting. I hate to put it off another month, but that's when our next meeting is, and I think we need more information, and it would give us a chance to talk to Lori and see where else we might be able to pull some money from.
It also, Mark, I mean, we're really kind of meeting less than a month away. So I really liked where, I can't see where Kate went. She's somewhere up there. I mean, I think Kate was going down the right path. I think that I'd like to see a motion like that, but I'd also just be a little concerned about the money. If it wasn't for all the unknowns that we are involved in. And we don't even know still yet what school's going to look like in September or the end of August. I think we should let people know that we're moving forward, or we're going to try to move forward. But I think if everybody's in agreement, a vote tonight is not, I don't think is appropriate. But I think Matt and Bill and Tammy, you know, let's talk to Lori. Maybe we can get Lori to participate in our next meeting. And we can kind of then move forward and see, and maybe we don't do it all this year, but maybe in this budget we put $3,000 or $4,000 towards it and get started, because it was a long-term thing, wasn't it, Mark? I mean, we thought it would be 6 months to a year out.
I think Derek gave a specific timeline. Well, he did. His timeline was about 3.5 months.
Total.
Total, yeah.
Is that realistic?
I believe so. With using WordPress as the content management system, I believe it is possible.
Okay, and you know, there may be some money at the supervisory union Bill doesn't know about that he can put towards this. Is everybody okay with that?
Can I just ask one other question?
Yeah.
Kate, would you mind sitting in on that meeting? Because you had the some of those ideas in regards to the phasing.
I can do that, yeah.
Great, thank you.
Hey, just remember, if it's more than you and Kate, it's got to be warned.
Hours that you put into that.
Yeah, Mark and Matt, I just want to shout out the level of detail you guys went to get to this point is going to be beneficial, however the speed at which it happens. And although I was a downer about being nervous about COVID money, I think that the iron is ripe for marketing. And I think Tammy and Matt will tell you about the context they've had with how things currently exist already. So I think the thinking is totally appropriate.
Thank you, everybody. So if there's nothing else, I don't see any other. Mark, nobody else has hands up? Okay, food service. So I know there was a lot of concern about, and Laura's discussed it a few times, and I know that Matt and Tammy have, and I'm going to say the wrong word, I forget what we called it, but insecurity, people not having enough food because summer school usually feeds people. Have we heard, is Matt or Tammy or Bill, has there been any issues in the public or any members of the public? Have you heard of anything? Go ahead, Tammy.
So we were approached at the end of the school year by the Stratton Foundation, and they wanted to team up with the area schools to provide those families who were food insecure the opportunity to get some food over the summer. So right at the end of the school year, I emailed all of the families and then gave them the Stratton Foundation's contact information, and they worked with local people or the families in Wardsboro to set that up over the summer. So I think we did take care of some of those families.
Matt, you all, anything you're aware of?
Yeah, I met with Alonzo, who's runs the kitchen at Twin Valley, and Charlotte Pavia of the Loose Knit Group in Dover. And that Loose Knit Group has been providing food bags for Dover and Wardsboro and Twin Valley and all the Wyndham Southwest schools as well. They made a tremendous effort to market their free meals program that were being distributed out of Twin Valley on 3 days a week, I think, like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they're giving out free meals. And then they also produced this heroic effort with getting these bags, these grocery bags of food out to families We tried distributing from Twin Valley, but we didn't have good turnout. So we started schlepping the bags. They started schlepping the bags. I'll exclude myself from that, up to Dover. And I think, Tammy, did they drive some to Wardsboro as well?
Yeah, every other week we get a delivery for about 5 families, I think it is. And I distribute them.
And honestly, one of the big takeaways was, we had 18 families signed up at first, and only 1 family showed up to Twin Valley for food. And so when we brought it up to Dover, we had the same thing. We had 18 families signed up and 3 families came. So we had an awful lot of leftover. But I think when you talk about voting with your feet and we talk about need, I think they're displaying what their needs and their availability are in terms of getting food. The people that have been getting it have been extremely thankful, and but it does not seem like it's any kind of overwhelming need at this point, especially with the resources that have been available through Twin Valley and through the summer meals program there.
So just with my other hat on, we had a food drop with fresh food from the state of Vermont at Mount Snow, I think at the end of June. And not all the spots were taken. It was one you were supposed to call in, and they had like pallets of food left, fresh milk, cheese, chicken, I forget all the stuff that was being given away. And Mount Snow put some up in their freezer, in their refrigerator, and they still haven't been able to get rid of it all. So it seems as though when I called the Loose Knit group and I called all the different places, the food shelves, a lot of them, like fresh stuff doesn't work because they pack the bags a couple days ahead of time or a day ahead of time. But so it doesn't, it appears as though people who need help or seem to be getting help. But if anybody's aware of somebody that needs something or isn't getting something they need, please, please let Tammy or Matt know, or Bill at the central office or his staff. And there's definitely resources out there, so nobody should have to worry about where their next meal is coming from, I hope. Mark?
April has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. See, April.
I would just like to say that I feel like the thing with Mount Snow that detracted people from going to get food was the whole having to call, because I know that all of the other things that they had set up that were like people just show up, then there was like hundreds and hundreds of cars miles long lined up for people to get the food. So I think that especially people who are food insecure often have troubles with things like calling and making appointments, or like planning, or like taking that extra step sometimes. So I think that might have been something with that. And I will say with the bags of food, something that might have made it so people didn't want to continue getting them is that a lot of times, I'm grateful when we get the bags of food, but a lot of times it's like a thing of really sugary juice and a thing of really sugary cereal, and like just not very healthy choices. So I don't really know. That's just my input from somebody who's grown up, very food insecure, and now my family's fine. But I think having things be easier for families to get to and have it be healthier choices might have a better turnout for families who are food insecure.
And it's interesting because that's why I was excited about the Mount Snow thing, because it was fresh, milk and cheese and chicken and stuff. And but the reason they did that was because of the mile-long cars and then people waiting for hours not getting anything. I know the other places they did the call-ins, that they were able to fill it up, but they do have a certain percentage of no-show. That's nothing that we set up. That's how the state had it. And we offered them a location and some help getting people there. But that was the extent of it. So, but thank you for your input, and I will send that forward because I do have the contact from the people I worked with to get that here. So I'll let them know. You just moved them. Let them know that was something that was brought up. Thank you for your
Yeah,
input.
just knowing that a lot of things like planning and stuff like that is hard for people sometimes who might have difficulties with financial, just all of it all kind of goes together.
Thank you for that. If nothing else on that part of the food, Matt, Mark, we all good? Move on. Okay. The next thing I had was, and I think this is probably Matt and Tammy. Last meeting we did vote to do the Wardsboro food in-house in Dover. So Matt and I know Tammy, you guys and Bill, I believe. I can't remember, Bill, if you were there or not. We were going to have to hire another person, and we were going to have to do some prep work so that we had the right equipment to get food to Wardsboro. Can you just want to let us know how that's going, progressing? Whoever wants to report out on that.
I can start, and Matt, maybe you can take over. So very shortly after the board meeting on June 19th, an ad was placed on School Spring for the kitchen position. And as of July 16th, which is almost a month later, there were 0 applicants. So Matt and I had a little discussion and thought maybe it wasn't, even though that is where we typically would advertise for a position for our professional teachers, it might not be the platform for this type of job or to fill this position. So I've had some luck in the past with Indeed.com. So I did go ahead and place the ad, I think it was last week, on Indeed. And as of this morning, I believe I sent along 8 applications to Matt. So within a week, we got 8 people. And Matt and I are in the process of reviewing those applicants and deciding on our next steps. Oh, and in the meantime, we did get 1 applicant on School Spring too.
And I can just add that in terms of our end, I've talked to Bob about expanding the program. That's not going to be a problem, as we discussed. And I've reached out to Lori Garland to discuss the possibilities for transportation, including either paying unemployee mileage or the possibility of leasing a vehicle for the school district to own, or to lease rather, to deal with the transportation of the food every day.
Are there any questions from Matt or Tammy, or Bill gave it the thumbs up? Everybody okay?
I'm good.
Hey, Mark, I think that,
I'm good.
thank you, Laura. Mark, it looks like there's some other people have joined since we started. Is everybody okay to understand that if they want to say something, there's a thumbs up thing or something, or raise your hand?
Yeah, there's a raise hand function if you go to your participants list, I believe. I'm a host, so I can't see that. But so if you have something you want to say, just go ahead and raise your hand, and Rich will call on you. Peter just raised his hand.
There's also a chat function which will be included in the minutes, as is.
Okay, so moving along, the next thing was summer school, and usually we get a kind of an update, and I don't know, Matt or Tammy, I think summer school is a little different, just like school was different. Is there anything we need to know, or anything you want to let us know?
I can just tell you that we had 18 students involved in the summer school program through Dover, and it's all been online, so no in-person instruction. It's all been either individual or small group. I did hear from one of the teachers today saying that this is their last week. It's going well. They've learned a lot about the kids, and overall, the report is good. I haven't heard any complaints from parents or any negative feedback at all. So that's all I've heard so far.
Tammy, all set, or?
Yeah, I'm all set. I know a couple of our families took advantage of the Explorers Camp, which is happening at Newbrook. And from what I've heard, kids are very, very happy, and teachers and staff are happy to be practicing some of the protocols that will be taking place in school as well for the fall.
Okay, is there any questions, any comments, any thoughts? last meeting, somebody mentioned that there was some new students signing up. I think that brought up a question from Laura about the brochure that we're going to discuss later. But Matt and Tammy, I know I got an email from a customer a couple days ago that said, oh, we're going to be here through the fall and we're going to register our kids and go over school. So is that still, has there been more since our last meeting, or have people backed out? Are people going home? What are you guys seeing? Well, you guys are pointing the fingers at each other.
When you asked me this last month, I said it was pretty average, and that was true. You asked me this month, I will tell you that since you asked me last month, Lori reported we have 18 new students registered as of today, which is much larger than normal, and represents nearly a 20% increase in enrollment, which is fantastic. So we have not received registration paperwork and residency affidavits from everybody yet, but all of that is in process. So it may be fewer students than that when it comes right down to it, but we're preparing for that slight level of increase. I think we're at 106 students on the books right now is what we're anticipating for fall. And that's if all the kids come that have registered.
Your turn, Tammy.
So we're actually almost the opposite of what Matt reports. We were really busy like first thing in the summer with lots of phone calls and inquiries. And it seems to have died down. I believe we only have maybe 1 or 2 new students for the upcoming school year for this school. However, it does seem like we have a lot of inquiries for our secondary students. I would say maybe half a dozen. So Jen's putting up her fingers. Gen 7? Higher. 6 new students for our middle and high school.
Matt,
I have a question, Richard.
Okay, hang on, Laura. Matt, you didn't touch on the secondary. Was that including secondary, or was that just in the elementary school? And if you're not sure, that's fine.
There were some secondary, but I don't believe that 18 number includes them.
Okay. Laura, go ahead. And then Kate, right after Laura.
Well, that was going to be my question, because secondary is a problem for our budget, I think, whereas in the building is a help for our budget. And so I think having a sense of that will be, 18 in the building. Wow. Do you have any sense and you don't have breakdown or anything yet like that, Matt, right? Because of the,
yeah, we have basic information. It's broadly spread out over the range of ages. It's not going to be a hardship in any of our classes at this point. As we start to approach 20 in a classroom, we will have a problem keeping 6 feet, and that'll be another challenge that we'll have to face. But but it's looking like it's been pretty manageable.
that's an interesting comment, Richard and Matt and Tammy, and I'm wondering if we're exploring using any other buildings or spaces, additional spaces. Maybe that's a different conversation. I'm good for right now.
Remember the Dover Elementary School was built for 200 plus students.
Not during a pandemic, Mr. Chair.
Kate, go ahead.
So I was wondering about the interest in the early childhood programs, because I know right now one of our major daycare providers for our area, Mount Snow, has not resumed operations, and we don't have a date on when they're going to resume. So I was wondering what the impact is going to be on like the Dover and the Wardsboro 3 and 4-year-old programs. I think Kids in the Country did open back up, but Mount Snow still hasn't opened. So, and with the kids in the classroom and all of that in the distance. Are you guys seeing a lot of inquiries for those? Jen was pointing up. Does that mean you've had some interest in those programs, Jen?
Bowman, just there is interesting conversation that yes, if Mount Snow daycare or childcare or the preschool program does not open up there, those students could possibly come to Wardsboro. So yes, that would bring us in a few extra, perhaps. Well, maybe two that currently aren't there, that we don't have enrolled. It's hard to say.
Yeah, that'll be interesting because I know my 3-year-old is slated to go to Mount Snow, but well, I don't know. So we'll see. But it feels funny to send him, yeah, to another school when I, want to keep his daycare consistent, but we'll see. But I was wondering if a lot of other families were in a similar situation.
Yes, Kate, I believe, and you, Alex, would, your son is, on that list of, could it happen, could, but we've had some inquiries, but nobody knows yet either. And again, would they send their 3-year-old? It depends on a work situation. And that's the biggest, if they have a job to go to.
Richard? Richard,
Yes.
can I ask a question?
Yeah,
Or
Kate,
make a
you're all done, Kate, right? Okay, I'm having some technical issues. Go ahead, Laura.
It's actually, it's not a question, just a comment that, I've been talking with Wyndham Southwest, and, this issue that Kate has brought up is really emerging there as well, with staff and others. So I think something to be aware of.
Oh, that's a good point, Laura. How does it impact our teaching staff? Like, are there teachers without childcare at this point in the game? Walking into this school year between, Dover and Wardsboro, will teachers have that? Because right now I'm in a very fortunate position. I'm able to work from home with my children here, but there's so many people who can't do that. Like, so are the teachers okay?
I think it's a bit uncertain, Kate, because schools haven't really decided what the format of instruction will look like yet.
Yeah, I have not had any reports yet of any teachers that are experiencing issues with childcare. It's not to say that there aren't any, they haven't come to me yet.
Okay, are we good with that topic? Can we move forward? Cool. Next thing was, at the last meeting, Bill had to leave early. But we had questions from the cabinet report. You're gonna send me questions if anybody had any, but I didn't see any. Did anybody have anything for Bill? I don't see anybody moving. So under old business, we added brochure. Matt and Tammy worked on a brochure. They sent it out today. I don't know if people had a chance to look at it. I thought it looked really cool. Bill giving it a thumbs up. Any comments? Mark gave it a thumbs up. Any comments from the board? Go ahead, Mark.
I thought it looked great. My only comment is, can we change the website addresses to be dover.rvusd.net and wardsboro.rvusd.net?
Richard?
Go ahead, Laura.
I thought it looked great. The only suggestion I have, and I hate design by committee, particularly at board meetings, is it might be nice if we could get Southern Vermont a little more prominently featured. The words near the title.
Located in the heart of Southern Vermont.
I know, I read it. I saw it, and I saw the image. It's good. just, you know.
Located just north of Brattleboro. Any other comments? Go ahead, Mark.
Just quickly, if I'm putting a link in the chat box to all the available documents for this meeting, if anybody wants to look at that brochure.
Everybody just moved again. Did we lose somebody? April. Is April still there? No, April must have left us. Okay. Stipend. So for 3 or 4 meetings, Tammy's been very patient with us, bringing us, they wanted to do a couple stipends with 2 staff members for a STEAM coordinator, much like at the Dover campus, there is stipends for 2 IB coordinators. So Tammy recommended that Heidi Pancake and Samantha Bovat each split the coordinators' positions and have a $6,000 stipend to be paid evenly over their 22 paychecks, and that it's subject to all payroll taxes. So this was discussed. We were fine with everything last time. We just told Tammy to get the contracts to us. I think we pretty much discussed it to death. Is there any comments from anybody? Any of the board members?
Could you give me the names again?
Samantha Bovat, B-O-V-A-T, and Heidi Pancake. Like the pancake. Yes. Did I say that right? Where's Amy shaking her head? Yes.
Best teacher name ever.
Yeah. Strawberry is her middle name. We just didn't know it. Okay, can somebody make a motion to have the chair sign those 2 contracts?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mark to have the chair sign the 2 stipend agreements, and Kate seconded it. Is there any discussion? Mark, we all good? Nobody raising their hands? Okay, how do you vote, Mark?
Aye.
Kate. Oh, Rick. I'm sorry.
Aye.
Kate.
Aye.
Dwight.
Aye.
Laura.
Hi.
So that's unanimous. So I will sign these, and Matt, I'll have him over here, Matt or Bill, and I'll put them in the mailbox out front. Okay, Bill's got thumbs up. Cool. Next thing we had, Zoom. Mark wanted to discuss the Zoom stuff. I guess we had some issues with our Zoom free trial period. So Mark, I'm going to turn it over to you.
So we had a 3-month trial period for GoToMeeting, which ended about a month ago. And their platform really isn't set up for hosting public meetings the way the Zoom platform is. So our recommendation was that we move to Zoom. In researching its costs and availability for education, the only way to purchase an education package is to purchase it's a minimum of 20 licenses, comes out to $1,800 for the year. If you use all 20 licenses, it comes out to $7.50 a month. And it's the only way to get FERPA and HIPAA compliance within Zoom. They've got a single platform for education and for healthcare that are compliant with both HIPAA and FERPA. So I discussed with Tammy and Matt whether their teachers would use Zoom. Some of the teachers do use Zoom. Some use Google Meet, which also is FERPA compliant because it's part of the Google for Education package. There are we could use Google Meet for our meetings. It does have a call-in number, which this free version of Zoom that we're on today does not. What it does not have are things like hand raising, the ability to mute and unmute participants, the ability to kick people off, as we do before we go into executive session. And they do not, or they may have breakout rooms. Matt and I were going to check, but so that's where we're at. There are only two platforms available to us that are FERPA compliant, Zoom being one of them. But the only way to get on that is to be on the education platform, which would be $1,800 a year.
Is that in addition to $12,000 for our webpage?
It is, but we've got 18 new students coming in, so.
Yeah, but we won't get fully paid for them for 3 years, so. Do you have a question, comment? Looks like you're off mute.
Me?
No, Dwight. I mean, is there any comments, thoughts, questions from anybody on the board?
Yes.
Go, Laura.
I mean, I think it would be best if we could get one platform that, you know, the staff and the board and the public could use. So, and we're not paying for Google Meet, right, Matt? Right? I mean, because we're already paying for that.
Right.
Is that right? And could the public can the public access the Google Meet? But we can't kick people out.
All the functions that you're used to in the legislature don't exist in Google Meet.
So there's no way to kick somebody out.
You can kick people out, but I have not successfully tested the waiting room function, which is a really important feature for executive session,
Right.
you know, for a place for people to come in. So I would want to thoroughly test that if we were going to be considering Google.
What's our time frame for having to move? Do we have to move right now, Mark or Matt?
The generally the time frame is we do not. I believe that to have a fully open public meeting, we have to have a dial-in function. We do not have a dial-in function right now. So our next meeting would be when we need to be on a different platform or the education version of Zoom in order to have a platform for the public to dial in.
So I think here's where I would be at. If I would prefer that if we can do Google Meet, if our administrator feels like, and Mark, like if we feel like we can test out those functions, just and for no other reason other than cost, you know, at this point.
I'll based on my conversation with Matt and Tammy, if we went with Google Meet, then the teachers that currently use Zoom would have to stop using Zoom because they would not have a FERPA or HIPAA compliant platform. So they would be forced to use Google Meet.
So, but I think it's pretty easy to switch back and forth, right? And all of our staff using the Google Suite or the whatever they call it?
Matt's shaking his head, yes.
So, I mean.
So is Tammy, but Kate was shaking her head no.
Interesting. Okay.
I don't know. I went to kindergarten on Zoom this year, so.
I'm not a teacher, but from a teacher's perspective, I think Zoom has a lot of functionality that Google Meet does not. Whiteboards, things along those lines. But I kind of leave that decision up to the administrators.
I don't want to put you on the spot, Tricia, but you were one of the teachers that pretty much strictly used Zoom versus Google Meet. And I don't know if it was mostly for comfort, but do you mind saying a couple words about your experience with that?
Sure. My class, we used Zoom from the very beginning, and it was one of those things that routine was built, and my kids did really well with it. It was easy for parents, and we went with it. And I found it was really successful. Kate, maybe you can add in with this too. But it worked really well for us, and I loved the functions that it had. I didn't have the same, I guess Google Meet wasn't the same for us. I liked the Zoom, and I would like to stick with it, but it is what it is.
Richard?
Yeah, Mark. So Kate, do you want to echo on Trish?
Yeah, so we started using Zoom with Amelia's kindergarten class at Warrensboro, and we had positive experiences. Like, there were occasions where, you know, technology would be tricky or something, but overall it worked pretty well. And we had, like, because we were in kindergarten, we didn't have Chromebooks. So all the families, like, I think if a family needed something, I believe the school was working with them. But like for us, like, I was using my work laptop quite often. I was attending a meeting for myself while Amelia was on her Zoom meeting, and I could just give her my iPad. And she got to the point where she could log into the meeting herself. So it was very kindergarten friendly in terms of user abilities and all of that. And it was neat too, because they did use Google, they did use Zoom, and they had breakout meetings, and did like some work with some other older kids to do some reading partners and things like that. So that was really fun to see them doing that. And I don't know if Google Meet has the same capabilities, but, you know, given that this year we may end up in a remote learning situation, I think it's good to look to the future and to what technologies we're planning for.
Okay, hey, Mark, before you go, looks like we lost Peter. No, Peter's back. Okay.
Yeah.
Peter, okay, I think you just missed some of Kate, but you should be able to see it on the recording, right?
Yeah, I can pick it up later.
Okay, go ahead, Mark.
So comment, and then also Dale Sherman has a hand up. I think having as Laura was talking about, a kind of a uniform platform is advantageous. My experience with Google Meet is that the video is low quality, especially compared to Zoom. And while I have a Google Suites account, I have yet to even see the functionality availability for a waiting room or breakout rooms. I understand from Matt that they are there. I haven't been able to see them in my Wyndham Central board account either. So I don't know how you get them.
Okay, so you said Dale had it.
Yes.
Dale, talk to us.
Yes, I am a teacher in Wyndham Southwest, and we only use Google because it's what our kids all had, and it was very accessible to them. It has some of the same functions that Mark was talking about, like Jamboards, whiteboards, raising hand features. It does have the breakout rooms and the meetings that you can do. It's just the idea of training teachers and kids how to use them. But because your kids for example, in Dover, where my two kids go, they have email accounts that are open to them. From those email accounts, they can easily open a Google Meet. So there's those features that allow them to make that accessible. I will say something that is rolling out from Google Education is that if you are outside of the domain, you may not anymore be allowed to join the meeting, to block some of those anonymous pieces. It's a rollout over the next like 15 days is what I read from G Suite. So I know that we're looking into some ways to do some different things with that. But we were never allowed to use Zoom. It was not a platform we could use because of the FERPA issues with it, even though it was like a free piece. I will say that my child's teacher at Dover, well, both of them actually never did Google Meet. They used Zoom the whole time. I did have issues with this as a parent, not knowing that it didn't have any kind of FERPA restrictions or pieces like that. It worked fine. Their teachers could use it and access it. But I think if there's something that's free that you can use for the school, then, and you're already a G Suite user, so you should. But I don't know if it'll work for you as a board meeting platform.
Thank you, Dale. Did anybody have any questions for Dale? She thinks she brought some good points up.
I do. Dale, so wait, what were you saying about they're locking it up? So like we couldn't, so we all have like a Wyndham Central School Board address, but like members of the public, would they be able to join a school board meeting?
So right now, we just got notified as education admins on these G Suite accounts that they would be blocking people from outside the domain. So for example, yes, if you didn't have a like at Wyndham Central or at doverschool.net like the kids do, then you would be blocked from like joining a meeting. That hasn't rolled out to all the domains. It takes Google a good chunk of time to roll that out. But that's why I'm saying I don't think as a board it would be useful, but as a school, it's a great platform. We used it. I mean, I've used it for months. I used it before we were in, dismissal of schools, and it ties in with Google Classroom, which the teachers at Dover used, and it has accessibility with Hangouts and their email that the kids have. So it's just really easy for the kids too.
What about with the younger kids? Like, because, the kindergarten kids, they don't have an email or anything of that nature. Like, would they be able to access it, or would we do emails for like the younger grades?
Well, my kindergarten son had an email account last year. And so we signed, like he has Google Classroom. So to be part of Google Classroom, the kids have to have an account and to be able to sign in. They can't sign in as a parent because then you're going to have issues with, again, sharing access. Like you can't have a parent email in a Google Classroom. So, I mean, there's that piece to it. So I don't know. I don't know what happened in kindergarten in Wardsboro per se, but I know in Dover, my son had an account.
Tricia?
I'll add in. So they do have emails and they do have computers at Wardsboro. It was just something that we didn't have in our routine. And when we started the dismissal, parents all said that they had computers at home, and that's why we were going through parents' emails so parents could access it with their kids. So the kids do have the emails, they do have the computers. It wasn't something we used this year.
Kate, are you all set?
I'm all set, yeah.
Hey, Dale, thank you for the input. It's appreciated.
Yep.
Bill, we're going to go to you next. Just, I think one of the points Mark had made early on was, does it make sense not for Wyndham Central to have something so that everybody in Wyndham Central uses the same platform and that we make sure it's all appropriate and whatnot. So can you maybe address that?
Sure. If the chair of the WCSU board would like to direct the superintendent to make that happen, I'm all ears. I think when Mark asked me the question, I simply said that each individual board was taking care of their needs and it was working, kind of like what Trish just said. It wasn't an opportunity to interrupt the flow during the pandemic of what was working for the boards, and making sure, like Mark said, being able to call in as well as to be able to run the meeting. So if that is the wish of the board, I will make it happen. I just, I kind of have to prioritize things at this juncture of where we are. And if it was working for the board, I did not prioritize interrupting that flow.
I heard the chairman of Wyndham Central's a real weenie anyway, so I don't know. Bring it up to him. I think the point is though, is right now for the board meetings, we have to do something different, right? Or am I missing that? Go ahead, Mark.
So you are correct. We can either switch to Google. Well, actually, it sounds like we couldn't switch to Google Meet because the public wouldn't be able to gain access. So what we can do is get a pro license. I think they're called for Zoom. It's a $20 or $25 a month fee. It is not on their HIPAA FERPA platform, but it would allow us to do everything that we need to do as a board. So if Wyndham Central is not going to head that direction, then that's how we can do it.
Bill, would that be an appropriate thing to maybe have a discussion on next week when we do the Wyndham Central, or is everybody else so embedded and happy and nobody's going to change?
I'm happy to add anything to the agenda in which the chair thinks is appropriate to add to it.
I didn't ask that. I asked what you thought.
I am really trying to be very disciplined and not ask more of the boards, teachers, principals than is necessary at this time, simply because of the overwhelming anxiety of operating in a very gray area. I think that this is not a huge ask, so I think it could be appropriate to have that discussion. And since it is coming up in 9 days, yeah, I think that is a reasonable request.
Is all the educators and all the students and stuff doing the same thing in Wyndham Central, or are there different platforms? Okay, so
it's very everybody's got Google Suites. Google Suites is dominant. As Dale explained, it's very education friendly. It's very integrative. So from a student's perspective, Google Suites is by far the dominant action. But going back to going live 36 hours after you are told to go home, there was some flexibility in how to communicate to 5-year-olds and 8-year-olds and families in a challenging environment. But as a dominant, it's Google Suites.
Okay, so because you all are blinking and moving around the screen and it almost looks like I've been drinking all night, Mark, why don't you and Matt and Tammy take care of our next meeting? And then, Bill, I got to talk to you about next week's agenda anyway, so we'll have that discussion. Is that okay with everybody? Is there any other thoughts or comments? Mark, anybody got their hand up?
Richard, it's Laura.
Yeah.
That sounds great. I would like us to do the thing that is easiest and most consistent and cheapest, in that order.
Yeah, I think Mark's big thing was just, and Mark, I'm probably putting words in your mouth, but like if we could do something at Wyndham Central and everybody bear a little bit of the cost, then it's not as costly. And I know Mark was concerned about the FERPA thing, but I don't think we have to worry about HIPAA, FERPA, or any of that in board meetings because we don't discuss students and we don't discuss individuals. So go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I don't remember what I was going to say now. You put words in my mouth and I forgot what they were. So
thank you. If we're okay, then let's get on to new business. New business, the first thing I have is pay warrants, and I think Bill had sent out 2 of them to us today.
Yep.
Did everybody get a chance to look at them?
I have 2 questions.
Go ahead, Mark.
Give me a second, got to pull it up. For the one that is check 1619 through 1634, there are 2 payments for First Light Fiber. One says July, one says July Dover. I'm assuming that the July one is Wardsboro. That be correct? Good assumption?
I would make the same assumption that you're making, but I don't know.
Okay. There is only one First Light check in the other packet, which was 1619 to 1657. I had one question there, which was the 4th item from the bottom, the Peck Company. It's for $1,024. Just curious what that is.
What's the name of the company?
The PEC, P-E-C-K company.
That's Peck Electric.
Oh, okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Oh, and Mark, it's 1619 on the first light question.
It's, you know what, they both start at 1619.
Okay, I'll check into that.
It's a 2-page one. There's nothing on the second page, but it's 2 pages.
Okay.
Is there anybody else have any other questions? Now I'm gonna find you all again. Y'all have disappeared. Okay, if not, can somebody make a motion to approve those 2 pay warrants and the amounts for Peter?
I will make a motion that we approve 2 pay warrants. The first one in the amount of $40,555.16. I'm having a hard time reading that. Nope, it looks like $40,565.16 for the first one. And the second one is $7,010.65.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and Mark seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Mark?
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Dwight?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
Okay. It's unanimous. Everybody's in agreement. Transportation schedule, approved bus routes with a question mark. Bill, Matt, Tammy?
We talked about bus routes a little bit today, and essentially at this point, we have a relatively small number of families that have responded saying they will use the bus this year based on their concerns with regard to COVID. And so at this point, we plan to run the same bus routes as we ran last year with no changes, unless there are significant changes in enrollment that would eliminate stops that are unnecessary.
So
Feel free
we
to
need
add
to,
anything.
okay, so we need to approve bus routes 30 days before, so you can publish them, correct?
I don't think that rule is as hard and fast as it used to be, Rich.
Okay, so what do you want us to do?
Well, you have a couple options. You can move on, and the administrators have let you know they're going to run the same transportation system as last year. You could ask the administration to send you what that looks like, and you guys could review that and then approve it on the 17th, which is still 2 weeks before school starts, and could be published after that. I would say you could do one of those 2 paths.
So from the board, what's your guys' thoughts? Go ahead, Mark.
I'd say if they're going to run the same routes as last year, that we just give them a blessing, go ahead. That only if they decide to change based on enrollment, that they come back to us on the 17th.
Anybody else?
Sounds totally reasonable to me.
This is Laura. It sounds really reasonable to me. I do worry about that large number of new kids, but I'm presuming that that'll just work.
We always change bus routes through the year anyways when it comes to the board. So this was just like for new people. Usually we were supposed to publish them 30 days, and then they put a big thing in the newspaper so that people would know where to go to their bus routes. But now that internet is so important and we can Google or we can Zoom them or do something like that, I think like Bill said, it's not as urgent. So if somebody would like to make a motion that the bus routes be approved the same as last year, and we second that and make a motion on that, then that can be what's published until it changes, and they can bring us changes as the season evolves. I mean, again, who knows what's going to happen in another month.
Would you like us to forward you
So
what we
moved.
have?
Yeah, I think, Tammy, that would be good.
Okay.
Just let everybody know so the board knows. So if somebody approaches them and says, hey, what's going on with my bus route, at least we have a clue. Laura?
Second.
Okay, so Mark made a motion to approve the bus route same as last year. Laura seconds it. Is there any more discussion? We're going to lose Ricky here soon. All those in favor, Mark?
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
Excuse me, Kate?
Aye.
Dwight?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
Next item is the VSBA annual conference, which I think is tomorrow and Wednesday. Mark, I didn't know if you had any comments or wanted to say anything, or Laura, I can't remember if you said something.
My only comment is that there are only 2 people registered from the entire SU from the email that I saw, which is kind of sad.
Laura?
Mark, I would just tell you that's not uncommon. These usually happen at really bad times, and this couldn't be a more unbelievably bad time. But I mean, like, I'm signed up, and the odds of me being able to go to 10% of it are going to be very low, simply because of the amount of stuff that gets piled up, and those days were blocked off. But we count on you to report back, especially you and Dan, to report back to the entire group of the kinds of things that you're going to learn, because I know they're going to be previewing some things that Laura's going to be discussing in August. So that's actually going to be very, very important. Just sometimes the timing is really challenging.
Yeah, I can only make a couple of the sessions on Wednesday, so.
Is it a live thing or is it a video thing?
It's live, as in the people are live, but they are not physically together. It is a video.
Okay. There's no other comments or discussions we can. I had waiting to study in light of COVID-19. And I had Laura there, but I know that Mark, the VSBA, is doing some stuff too. So if you'd like to weigh in also, whoever wants to go first, Laura or Mark.
Mine will be short. I am still waiting to receive a copy of the letter that the VSBA is supposed to be sending to the various chairs of the education committees. Laura, I think we added a couple other committees to that list. I am going to have it put on the agenda for the next VSBA meeting to make sure that it actually is happening, because I have not heard anything.
I would just simply add, I think I would almost go out on a limb and say, I think there is growing consensus in the legislature that this needs to happen. The piece that I wrote, it is being shared a lot, the historical piece, by longtime legislators there. But I am skeptical about the amount of change that we are going to get in August, which means that we will continue to be violating poor and rural kids' constitutional right to substantially equitable education opportunities. So I think this is a conversation that is just continuing. I do think that I have not shied away from, if I were going to put on my legislative hat, I have not shied away from the premise that, towns should be talking to attorneys But I think that what has happened, it's really difficult to think about pushing this forward, even though the inequity for our students, the cost for our taxpayers is so outrageous. But what is happening right now in our whole education community, it seems to me it's just Herculean, the effort that people are putting in just to keep things going. And so, you know, trying to find that, and that includes legislators and the AOE. I mean, everyone trying to really get their heads around it. So I think I'll stop speaking there. It is not a dead issue by any means.
Any other questions, thoughts, comments from anybody? And then,
Richard, I do
Yep.
know. I do know we have a lot of. We do have a lot of. I have gotten a number of questions around the education financing, and just not folks that don't understand the property tax, how all of that correlates. And I do want to really invite folks that are either new to the area or new to this discussion as they're watching these videos. There's a lot of information to share, and we've got some really long-time historical knowledge on our board. Folks can come to a board meeting to talk about this. They would reach out to the chair and ask to be, you know, on an agenda. So, you know, there's no reason to not ask questions if you don't understand the consequences of this.
You frozen, Rich? I he looks like he's really, deep in thought.
I'm sure he is very deep in thought. Do we have everybody else?
Yeah, Rick, you want to take over?
Is Rick frozen or is Rick here? There's Richard. He's back.
I don't know. My computer just did something strange. So
I think you need a new tech guy there, Rich.
I know. I need technology like I need another hole in the head. I think, Laura, maybe what we should do is let's look at the future schedules. I know next month we're going to work on our fall schedule and, working the budget. And I think maybe before budget time, it would be good, like we used to do, sit down and say, hey, here's how we come up with the tax rate. So if everybody's good with that, maybe we can do something like that.
I think that sounds great.
Okay.
That sounds great.
Is everybody good with that? We'll move on.
Richard, I would just, if I might just say, separate from the board with my legislative hat on, I am going to have a public forum just for folks to ask questions, share their concerns going into the school year. I have a number of constituents in 6 different towns. So that's going to be, can I do a commercial for that or no?
Sure.
July 30th at 7 p.m. And so I will send out information. It's going to be virtual.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Is that going to be on Zoom or is that going to be on?
It'll probably be on Zoom.
Okay. If everybody's good, let's go to administration update on fall opening of schools. And again, we understand that, things are moving. If you believed everything in the paper, a week ago, there were 60 new cases in Manchester. I don't know if people saw, they did a presumptive test or a better test. And they only tested like 33 or 34 people, but only 2 tested positive. So it doesn't quite seem to be the outbreak that they were leading us to believe. But again, there's still, every day there's, you look at the country, there's people dying, there's people getting sick. And so again, we understand it's a fluid thing and it can change daily or hourly. But Bill and Matt and Tammy, you want to let us know what you see or what you think we should know?
Yeah, so I'll give kind of the big WCSU umbrella, and then I'll let Matt and Tammy talk about the specifics for the River Valley schools. But basically what we're trying to do is come to as many universal agreements across the WCSU, knowing that we have 4 separate legal entities, Marlboro, Windham, West River, and River Valleys, that operate school systems that have different food systems, they have different transportation systems, they have different contracts, they have different historical perspectives. So we are working with all the principals, the representatives of the Windham Central Education Association, our nurses, and our cabinet members, in particular our Director of Special Ed and our Director of Operations. And we've been meeting for, I don't know, 3 months, and trying very hard to try to figure out what the fall is going to look like, looking at it from the lens of the student, which looks different when you're looking at elementary school than when you're looking at middle and high school. Each district is going to create their own solutions. Hopefully it will be as consistent across the SU as can be possible, but everybody has unique circumstances, unique personnel that they have employed, and unique needs of their community. We are very strict to the guidelines of the safe and healthy school reopening that have been provided by the AOE and the DOH. The principals have been very diligent in looking at their buildings and looking at spacing and how to set that up, how to use space wisely, how to use outdoor space wisely, thinking about how to do all the protocols. We have been fortunate to run 2 separate camps, one at Leland and Gray and one at Newbrook, where we have instituted all the protocols that are in the guidelines to see how they operate. One thing you find out very quickly from young students is you can start them at 6 feet apart, but they don't stay 6 feet apart. And so having school rules around wearing facial coverings, frequent hand washing, and making sure that we are doing everything we possibly can to minimize any exposure for our students, for our staff, for our vendors that come in to visit. So we've learned a lot, and the director of both of those camps has been sharing with our principals those types of things that they are learning. The principals are going over and visiting and actually seeing it in person to understand what that looks like. But in general, we are trying to figure out how to open school safely and securely for the benefit of our students in the context of running schools in a pandemic. Recently, we did a very, I would say, not too extensive, but very informative survey. We've received 297 family results out of a possible 572. So that's in the first 3 days. That's a lot of really good data. Today we met with our large group, and the principals have been digging into their own individual data to see what that means for transportation, as Matt alluded to earlier, what that means for class size. And then what we're really trying to challenge ourselves this week is how can we operate school as well as how can we accommodate families that want to be in a remote environment. Overall, our results are about 30% of families would like to have a remote option. And that's very important, not only for serving the needs of our students and our families, but also we have to, as Laura pointed out, when we talk about the weighting study and talk about benefiting our students, but it's also benefiting, budgetary constraints. For every student that leaves and chooses to homeschool, that is a student that does not count as an equalized pupil. And if families are looking for a remote option, it is our responsibility and obligation to dive deep into to see if we can find out how that works with our current staff, how that works with our different organization of our staff, how it works across schools and school districts. So it's a very difficult puzzle to go into. I will say that it's been unbelievable working with the teacher representatives and the nurses and the director of operations, simply because everybody comes at it from trying to solve a problem for the students. There are no turf battles. Every challenge is a problem to try to be overcome. It's been a pleasant experience in that realm, but it is not easy. So we have made a commitment that we are going to try to commit to communicating to families that first week of August what our plan is. We would rather be a little bit later and give families a 4-week notice than be wrong and give families a 6-week notice. So we're really doing our due diligence these last 2 weeks to get something by August 1st that we can communicate out to families. We don't have any hard and fast decisions. We are definitely looking at different operations where kids are in some days of the week and are remote other days of the week. Trying to maximize in elementary school students being in-person instruction, both for looking at the science and looking at the benefits for the social and emotional and the learning of the student. I think that's kind of the big overhaul, and I'll let Tammy and Matt speak specifically, and then we can all three kind of take questions. Might be the best.
Go ahead, Matt.
Thanks. Tammy and I are like not it.
I know,
well,
I saw that.
That was a great introduction, Bill. I appreciate that. I mean, the way that the central office has helped us through this, the director of operations, superintendent's office, figuring out what's it going to take to be absolutely as safe as possible, given all the variables. There's just no way we could have gotten all of that together, all that information together, gathered it, researched all the vendors, made orders for all the PPE and the things that we'll need without their help. So I really, really appreciate that. And Dave and Helen, our custodians at Dover, have been outstanding with, you know, putting desks together, taking out the tape measure, and making sure that we're doing our best to be in compliance with those CDC recommendations and the guidance from the AOE and the governor's office. That said, the obvious unknowns are what happens with cases and how does that impact us. I think we still have to work on articulating some scenarios. So if this, then what, to help people know that we have a response that's a prescribed response to whatever we might face. Still trying to get the human resources in place to meet all the needs for screening, bus monitoring, temperature taking, contact tracing. It is a precision operation with a lot of moving parts. And so it's just been a, you know, regular meeting, and I had a great meeting with the Dover staff today, brought out a bunch of, you know, things that have been on their minds. That went really well. I've got some great feedback for the WCSU leadership team from that, and we'll include that in our decision making as we move forward. I'm looking forward to getting all the data from the parents, but we already had a great turnout for Dover families and on the survey, 60 families, which is fantastic, and so that's only after a couple days. So we'll remind them a couple more times, lock that up later in the week, and hopefully make decisions that will probably make about half the people happy. And we'll do the best that we can with the information we have. So.
I can go next. I'm not sure, some of the stuff might be repetitive. I wrote down a few ideas here to share with you. Really planning for the fall began when school ended, or even before school ended in June. I was able to meet with Chris Medina and discussed building specific protocols, including health screenings, classroom setup, serving food, bathroom use, playground use, walking in the hallway, disinfecting protocols, setting up, spaces for sick children. He's also been, as Matt mentioned, very helpful in securing PPE. We've got gloves, masks, face shields, hand sanitizer, wipes, a disinfecting machine, counter guards, along with the help of Jen, securing a lot of those items as well. He also is working on a grant through Efficiency Vermont for updating our HVAC system. as well as hiring additional custodial staff. You know, I met with the staff at the end of the school year, just debriefing about how remote learning went. So we had a lot of ideas on how to move forward and how to change things for the better for the upcoming school year if we go into, you know, that mode again. As Bill mentioned, we've been meeting as basically the COVID task force, which includes teachers, administrators, school nurses, Bill, to review the AOE and CDC guidelines and how to evaluate them and put those in place. On Thursday, July 16th, a letter went home to the families letting them know that a survey would be sent home from the superintendent regarding their opinions on the start of school. Bill sent out the survey on Friday with hopes to have those completed on the 23rd, which is, I believe, this Thursday. And these results will just help guide our decision-making for the format options for instruction in the fall. You know, some of the options include in-person learning with an adjusted school calendar, remote learning, and also, you know, a question about whether or not, and Matt touched on this about, you know, whether or not families would do their homeschooling or not. So we're gonna, you know, analyze the data to help guide us in our decision-making for reopening in the fall. And we hope to have those plans finalized, like Bill mentioned, by the first week of August. I do have a meeting set up with the teachers on Wednesday to discuss options and get their input. And yeah, so it's been a busy 5 weeks for sure.
So is there any questions for our administrators?
Rich, Laura?
Yeah, Laura and then Mark.
Just, I don't know that it's a question. 2 comments. One, just interested in understanding how we can support you all, how we can be most supportive to the administration, the students, the teachers, but also, not but, and also, as I said, I'm hearing from the other supervisor union that I represent in the legislature, and just Bill, wondering, thinking about how possible it is for the supervisor unions that are close by to be on a similar schedule, or how that might be mitigated. So I don't know if that's already something that you know, or if that's just something I'm asking to be, which I'm sure it is, being kept front and center. That's it. Thank you. I know this is excruciatingly hard.
So on your first point, how you can support us, just to understand that we're going to spend the money we need to spend to have a safe and healthy opening. And so I'm taking that responsibility through Chris Medina to make sure that we are hiring custodians that need to be hired to do what needs to be done, that we're hiring bus monitors, that each principal has to look at their operations and their people and see if you need an additional thing here or there. We're ordering everything from central office so that we can keep track of it, so we can code it. You know, we don't know how the legislature is going to play out, and the money from the CARES Act or assessors is going to flow through or not flow through. But we have made the decision under my, ultimately my responsibility, that we're just going to get what is necessary in order to open, and then we will figure out whether we get the money or we don't get the money and how that's going to play out. So that's one, is just understand that that is the approach we're taking for the safe, healthy return of our students and our faculty. The second one is I meet every Thursday with all the superintendents in Windham County and in Windsor County. That is our region. And we are trying to do at a supervisory union level the same thing that we're trying to do at a district level within our supervisory, which is trying to find as many commonality items as we possibly can. The challenge is everybody's building is different. Everybody has different levels of staffing. Everybody has different expectations from their community. Everybody has different challenges that they face. And so it's going to be impossible, unless it was made at the state level, for each school district to look the same. It's just, unless the state says this is the way it's going to work, We've been provided guidelines that we're going to follow, but the implementation of those guidelines and how that plays out in the day-to-day life of families and parents and kids is going to unfortunately look different because a decision was not made at the state level. For example, everybody's going to be remote the first semester. That decision is made, then we would have operated under that. I appreciate the flexibility. I appreciate trying to create a solution that is specific to the communities and dealing with the resources that we have. But it's going to mean that it's going to look different in different places. But as a long answer, yes, we try to have similar things across SUs.
Can I ask a quick follow-up, Richard? I'm assuming he's frozen. Rick, may I ask a follow-up?
He said yes.
Go ahead.
Giving a thumbs up.
Yes, you may.
So Bill, would it be easier at this point or, you know, in the weeks coming forward for state level decisions to be made?
Only if they were going to supersede the last 8 weeks of planning. I mean, I think that train is.
So we're past it. So now it will not be helpful.
Well, it would only be helpful if it was a blanket for the entire state. And I would think it would be those are the kinds of decisions I'm anticipating are going to be made at the state level based on the science on the ground and where we stand as a state. But right now, we are making decisions based on where we are as individual regions.
Okay. The other, my last comment would just be, I really applaud and am happy to hear about that we're going to be keeping it flexible, that, you know, we don't want to lose parents with their kids because we aren't able to provide them a remote option. I think I heard you saying that we're trying to figure that out as opposed to homeschooling.
Yes, we are.
Yes, that's, thank you. Thank you. That's happy to hear that. Thank you.
And then just to follow up on your support question, if we have to make a major purchase, if for some reason it is absolutely necessary for us to deliver what we think is necessary to deliver and I got to hire a new person, I'm not making that kind of decision. I'm talking about a extra 6 hours of custodial work, or I'm talking about hiring a bus monitor for an hour and a half or 2 hours in the morning. But any gigantic $100,000 purchase that would be particular to your district, you can be assured that I will be coming to the board explaining the need for that. But in terms of the health and safety, cleaning, those types of things, PPE, those decisions are being made with, they're absolutely necessary for us to even open. So just to split that hair a little bit.
Mark, I think you were next.
So one comment and one one question. I think it's absolutely appropriate that you are spending the money you need to spend to do it right. You have to do that. My question is in regards to nursing. What resources are available in the SU to our district if we are to have in school, in class opening?
None in terms of like on the ground day to day. What we're basically doing this summer is that we have our nurse that is our full-time nurse in West River. We are paying a stipend to be the nurse consultant at the camp to help us set up the camp, and then she is on call for anything that happens. So for example, we've had a couple situations where we've needed the nurse to be consulted. The nurse was not on site, and the director consults the nurse and participates in the decision-making process. We have found that to be quite effective. Really, the nurse has been super helpful in setting up all the protocols and making sure they're there, and then being an expert consultant when we need for particular cases. But if we find that that is a necessary expenditure that will make sure that our safe and healthy guidelines are being followed, then that is something that we would move forward on. But we have not found that to be the case this summer. in that model, and it's kind of a wait and see to see how it's going to be as we start school. But the nurse has been incredibly important in setting up the environment and educating us about how the environment needs to go.
Is the anticipation that that nurse will be available for consulting with districts outside of West River?
Yes, I've committed those services for this year, and if they're not enough, then we'll do something different.
Great, thank you.
Is there any other questions, comments? Looks as though we got everybody nailed. One quick thing that I forgot earlier, Kate had said, Kate, you had made a comment earlier. You sent me an email because I sent an email out to people at whatever email address I have on my work computer. If everybody would send me whatever email they want me to send stuff to, you respond to that RJW email at wbmbt.com, because I can't get into my Google one that Bill set up for the school board, because I think I have Google Docs or something else, and it keeps putting me back into a WB space. So I'm really, it's a little frustrating. I'm not very.
Do you need support? Do you need tech support?
I do. Do you do tech support? You and Mark can bail me out.
Maybe Mark or I could figure out like how to show you multiple Google accounts and how to move between them.
Bill tried once. The problem is I don't do them enough, and so I'll forget it between now and the next meeting. It's what's been killing me.
Need the cheat sheet.
I've got a bunch of cheat sheets. I've been looking at them.
There's a 10-year pool that's been accumulating, Kate and Mark, for whoever can get Richard on a smartphone.
Oh, the challenge thrown. Okay.
I'm impressed that he's still on a flip phone. I'd encourage him to stay that way personally. So I'm not getting into that pool.
Peter, go ahead, buddy.
Yes, can I ask that you save the chat file before you shut things down?
Is that possible?
Well, it's supposed to be. I can save it, but I've just been on 2 different computers now, and it's got
Matt put his thumb up, so Matt says.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we're going to move into executive session, but I know there's been people, and I don't get to see everything, and I'm trying to follow it on the screen. There's a bunch of people come and gone. Did everybody, in the beginning, we did members of the public, but there was a lot more people since then. Does anybody who's on the screen have any comments, questions, or last thoughts before we go into executive session? Mark, is everybody good?
No hands.
Okay, and then there's one person that just says Eric. Can you just tell us what your last name is so we can put you in the minutes?
I sent him a chat previously making that request. Maybe it's in the file.
Yeah, I did as well. They may not be active.
Hey, hi, Eric. Are you there? Does anybody know who Eric is?
He has sent a chat.
Got
Oh,
it.
he sent a chat.
He just sent it.
Oh, Eric Rosenbauer. Hi. How are you, Eric? A little slow over in Eastover, isn't it? Okay, so cool. Then let's thank you, everybody. If nobody has any comments. Oh, he says mic issue. Cool. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. But now we got to kick everybody out for an executive session. And then, I don't know, Mark or Matt, whoever's running it, we got to just have a way for Rich and Peter to get back.
Yeah, I just turned the waiting room on, so they can come right back in once I kick them out.
May I suggest I'll be picking up the recording for a few things I missed, so I can just get it all then.
Okay, so Peter, then thank you for tonight. We'll see you in August 17th.
Okay, good luck.
Night, Peter.
so Dale and Eric are gonna go to the waiting room, and then Rich, you go off for a little bit.
Yeah.
Mark, let us know when we can. Oh, I need somebody to make a motion to move an executive session for a contractual employment issue.
So
I moved
moved.
it. Ben, okay, got it.
Seconded.
Mark moved, Laura seconded. Roll call vote. Mark,
Yes.
Rick, Rick said aye.
Yes.
I heard him. Kate,
Yes.
Dwight,
Aye.
Laura.
Aye.
Okay, all in favor. We're gonna move into executive session at 8:15.
It is.
Okay, so at 8:20, by unanimous consent, we came out of executive session. Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a
Um,
motion.
Go ahead, Rick.
I move that we move out of executive session at 8:21 p.m.
No, we already did that.
Oh, ah,
Get by unanimous consent. Sorry. So we just need a motion. What was discussed in executive session? As no decisions are made.
I'll move that we approve the contract for Timothy. I don't have it in front of me. What's his last name?
Belser.
Belser, thank you.
BELSOR.
For a 30% 0.3 FTE, and have the chair sign the contract.
And we should just mention the dollar amount too.
It was 15,000 and change.
$15,550.
Thank you, Kate.
Okay, so the motion's to hire Richard Belser as a 0.3 teacher for $15,550 as the art teacher. We have a motion. Do we have a second, Rick?
I'll certainly second that. His name is Timothy Velser.
Timothy, I'm sorry. I'm Richard.
But Richard Belzer is a
Richard Belzer.
great comedic actor.
Indeed.
Oh, maybe that's why I was thinking it. So Timothy is going to have a job if I sign it right. So, motion is second. Is there any more discussion? Hearing none. Mark,
Aye.
Rick,
Aye.
Laura,
Aye.
Dwight,
Aye.
and Kate.
Aye.
Okay, so it's unanimous. So I will sign that and leave that in the box with the other two from earlier. Bill won't be in there first thing because I can't find it. I've been looking for it, so I'll get it tomorrow morning. I already closed out my email. I'd like to ask everybody from now on, when we do these meetings, stop moving on the screen because it's hard for me to track you all. And Kate, I do want, Mark is helping me, and if you want to come down and help straighten me out too, I really use it. So I'll entertain. Our next meeting is August 17th at 6. Bill, how are we set up now? Are you gonna attend our one meeting a month with us the whole time?
Well, unfortunately, West River is in the middle of their long-term planning process. So they have 3 meetings a month. So I don't think I'm going to be able to avoid that conflict until November. And then something else will come up. So I'll be there for the first hour on the 17th.
Okay, should we change our meeting nights then?
I feel very confident with Matt and Tammy and myself working together to make sure that we deliver on the board's goals, even if I have to leave at 6:55.
Is everybody on the board okay with that?
I am okay with that.
Yes.
I think if we've got something special, we can ask him to stay a little bit longer if necessary.
And then, Bill, we do need Lori at the next meeting though too.
Lori is coming to the next meeting and she'll have the financials as well.
Okay, perfect. August 17th, 6 p.m. When are we going to start meeting live again?
Well, the governor's order is still rocking and rolling. I think it might change once we start using school buildings, but I would not recommend a change at this time. I think Mark was prescient in thinking about the future and how to host virtual meetings. I think that's going to be the case for a little while.
Okay. Very good. So I just need a motion to adjourn.
Richard, may I just say one thing?
Yeah, you and then Kate.
So with Matt and Tammy and Bill, I just want to express my extreme appreciation. I know these are extraordinary times, and I'm grateful that we have the three of you. I know it's hard to do this, and we will get through.
Here, here.
Thank you, Laura.
Well said.
Definitely.
It's crazy. This is a very crazy world.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
And we'll use the same for the August 17th meeting, as long as that's okay with Matt.
Come on, Kate, make the motion.
Oh, there we go. Motion to adjourn. See, I've got people yelling in the next room now too. So.
A second.
Thank you, everyone. Good job, Richard.
You're muted, Rich.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. We'll see you all in a couple in a month.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
At all.